Hey guys, welcome back to TBS Skylabs. We are quite the way into a big series it's turning out to be on how to do encryption and stuff. Now, we'd done how to make the key, we'd done how to encrypt a line of text, we'd done how to decrypt it from the cipher, and we'd made a menu. Now, a lot of this was optional extras, but the stuff we're going on to is going to be increasingly more advanced. Nothing super hard, but I think at this stage, a lot of people, if you haven't done the optional stuff, you'd be better to go back and do the optional stuff than to be carrying on with what we're doing today. Okay, so I would suggest go back and do the optional things if you haven't already. If you have done the optional things, then today we're going to look at how could we read from a file and encrypt that data. I'm not sure we'll do it in the whole video today, but we then want to output that to a file as well. Okay, we'll maybe do that in a second video instead. Okay, so once again, let's start by doing it in a separate file from our main program. This just makes life easier, there's a lot less typing, and it sort of makes our things a bit more modular. Now for this one, I'm going to need a text file. So I'm going to go to the area where I've saved my Python code, and I'm going to create a new text file. And let's call it plain underscore text.txt. No, not d.txt, sorry, just plain text, because it automatically, these days, adds the txt file. So just be careful, whichever system you're using, just make sure you've not got plain text txt.txt, if you don't have the one.txt on the end there. Now we need to put some data into our text file. So as I've been testing all the way along, I want to put in just the start letters of the alphabet, the last letters of the alphabet, to make sure I'm testing the boundaries. And then let's just put in a random message as well. So meet me by the bridge at midnight. Come alone, we are being watched. Okay, so therefore I've got my little message, I've got my ABC, XYZ, just as my test stuff. So let's save that. Okay, so then I'm going to go to my file here, my program, sorry, and I'm going to try and open that file. So internally, inside of my program only, not outside of the program, I'm going to call it in file, because it's a file I'm reading in. And I'm going to say equals open. So we use open to read a file. Now inside of open, we have to say the name of the file. So plain text.txt. And we got to say what we want to do to that file. In this case, I want to read it. Just in case, we've done this a bit before in class, but for those who are new to it, you can read, you can write, you can append, and you can create a file. We're going to use some of these as well later. Okay, now for each line in my file, I want to just print it out. So let's do for line in file. Let's print the line. Okay, now again, we probably could do this as for x and range, but let's just keep it simple for now. So for paper 4, we're allowed to write it this way for A levels, but for other parts, you might need to break it down into bits. Anyway, let's see what we get. There we go. So ABC, XYZ, meet me at the bridge, blah, blah, blah. Now, we notice I'm getting a bunch of extra spaces in there. Now, part of that is because each of the lines of my text file has a new line character at the end. And it's like an invisible character that says take a new line. Additionally, a print automatically adds a new line. So that's why we're doubling up on the number of, doubling up on the number of lines we're getting there. So we get two ways to solve that. Number one, we can either change our print and say, don't add a new line, and that's going to get rid of it. Or, what I'm going to prefer for today, because it gives us added benefits, is I'm going to use the Python strip And strip basically gets rid of new lines and all these other invisible characters and just tidies up that code. So new line might not be our only problem. So strip's pretty good for just cleaning things up. And so we get like so. Okay, now maybe I want to add that stuff to an array and print it out. Yeah, okay, let's do that. So let's call it let's call it PT array. It's going to be empty. And then instead of printing the line, I'm going to PT array dot append. Again, depending on the language, we're going to append it in different ways. And then at the end, let's just print the PT array just to see that everything has been added to the array as we hope. Yay! Okay, so each new line has now been added as a separate item on our array. Okay, now notice we're not encrypting anything here yet, but it is what it is. We're going to do that when we bring it to our main program. Now, we've got some other stuff we need to do when we're dealing with files. So if, for example, I try and read in a file and it doesn't exist, I'm going to get this crash. Crashes are not good. People don't like it when their programs crash. So we can deal with it in a nicer way than just letting it crash. Now, this is not just for files, but generally it's for things that are outside of our control. If somebody's gone and deleted the file, there's not really much we can do about that as the programmer who wrote the program 10 years ago. So we have to say, if something goes wrong, go wrong in a nice way. So I can do that using a try, which is effectively saying, excuse me, Mr. Program, there's a reasonable possibility that this code is going to have an error. If that code has an error, I want you to do the except code. Now, we can have different types of exceptions, like file ILO, I can't remember offhand. You can look up the different Python exceptions, and you can give it a specific one, which is good if you're making like a more complete program. For us, I'm just going to say except, which is like a general case. So in any case that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, that I'm getting an error and it crashes, I'm just going to print, sorry, file not found. Okay, so try and do this. If that doesn't work, do that. Now let's see what happens when I run my thing. Oh, sorry, file not found. Now if I change it back to dump and dump, you see that it works. So if it doesn't work, do this. If it does work, great. Just ignore the except part. Okay, so now I want to start actually encrypting my lines. Now, I could manually put it all into here and bring stuff across, but I think this is the point in time where I maybe want to start thinking, well, let's add it to my main file and start using some of the stuff that I've done before. So let's copy all that and go to the menu file that I had before. Ta-da! And let's put that into a nice new function called encrypt file. Now, when I encrypt the file, I want to give it a file name. And I want to give it a key, as I did before. Okay, now, oops, the indentation has gone funky. Now, I could print the array, but I probably also want to return the array. So I want to give it out as an option as well. So I can print it out or give it out. Okay. Now, again, I've not actually started encrypting stuff yet, but let's check that the integration of this into there has worked. Okay, so let's start by adding another option to my menu. So I can encrypt, I can decrypt, I can make a new key, or I can exit. So let's do elif menu answer equals encrypt file. In that case, I'm going to call n what did I call it? I've done everything else as lowercase, so let's make that lowercase. Then I'm going to call encrypt file, and I've got to give it a file name, and I've got to give it a key. Okay, so let's get it a file name first. So I'm going to say file name equals input. Enter the name of the file to encrypt. And that's then going to be passed into the encrypt file method. Or, sorry, not method, into the encrypt file function. Now, I also have to update my menu to make sure that encrypt file is one of the options that is available. So remember, we made this before, and this was just a way to validate that we'd entered something sensible. Okay, so let's check and see. Again, we've not encrypted anything yet, so let's just actually see if our code is working so far. It's good to test stuff as we go along. What would you like to do? Encrypt the file. Name of the file, plain text.txt. Yay! Now actually, I think I cheated slightly there, because in here I've just done it automatically to plain text.txt, and that should actually be the file name that they give me. Okay. So let's try that again. Encrypt file, plain text.txt. Yay! Okay, so that time it actually worked, and I wasn't just faking it. And then I can exit. Okay, so you'll notice I've not actually encrypted anything yet. So, how can I encrypt it? Well, to encrypt it, I'm just going to use my encrypt method function. Now, at the end, I'm printing the cipher. So once I encrypt a line, I'm just printing it. But instead, or in addition, I could return the cipher. Okay. So now, when I call encrypt with the text and the key, I am going to, when I call encrypt with the text and the key, I'm going to get that value back. Now, again, I'm writing this the long-handed way. I could do it all in one line and crush it all together, but just for clarity, let's say encrypted line is going to equal encrypt. Now, we said we have to have the plain text, which is going to be the line, and it's also going to have the key. Now, then we're going to add that encrypted line to the array. Oh, sorry, it should be line dot strip, just to make it sensible. And then we're going to add that to the array instead. Okay, and then we're going to print it out and return it at the end. So let's see how that goes. Fingers crossed. What would you like to do? I would like to encrypt the file. I want to encrypt plain text.txt. Dum bum bum, and then I get out the encrypted thing. Now this is happening because I've said inside of here that I'm going to print the cipher. So I might want to get rid of that line. I can tidy it all up later, and rather than just calling it here, I could maybe print the answer down here. But again, that's up to you to tidy stuff up and make it a bit better looking. Later on I want to add a GUI, so it's not going to really matter that much later on in our own programs, because it's all going to be just appearing on the console in the background. Okay, so main takeaways for this one is we can open a file, we give it the file name and what we want to do to it, and then we can take each line and do something with that line. Strip helps to remove all the extra stuff. And then what we can do is we can use try and except as a way of error handling. Should something happen that we don't expect, for example, that the text file does not exist. Okay, and I think I'll do the output bit, writing it out to a file in the next part. Okay, see you soon. Ciao.